Greetings, guys. And welcome to this week's masterclass. We're going to start in 30 seconds. So can we please get settled? Yola, can we please get settled? Onke? Onke? Onke?
This one is for questions.
Okay, that microphone, Grant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. We can now start then. Welcome to this week's Algorithm Lab Innovation Masterclass, and also welcome to our friends who are joining us via the live stream. We're live on Facebook as well as YouTube, and that's how we do things. By the way, first and foremost, I just want to congratulate Team Algorithm for reaching 1,000 streams plus. That was for last week's masterclass. My name is Langelihle Zulu. For the benefit of those who are watching and streaming this online, I am the managing director for AlgoAtWork.com. AlgoAtWork.com is a social innovation movement. We focus on digital content as well as technology. We have started this vehicle or this channel as a means of education. Education is a critical component for this organization, and hence we then took a decision to do these programs weekly so that we can share the knowledge and the skills as we have been doing the past couple of weeks. Last week, we had Dr. Mugul from the University of Zululand, who was sharing with us Internet of Things as well as big data. And hence I was talking to 1,000 streams that we reached last week. Today, we are focusing on artificial intelligence and how it will impact education. There has been a lot of struggle, there's been a lot of debate, a lot of fights that we have seen the past couple of years, especially within the country. Decolonize education, how do we open access to education and information? So today it is fitting that we focus on artificial intelligence, given the fact that we are now in the age of the fourth industrial revolution, and how education will, or rather how AI will impact education. We have who's going to deliver this address for us, the co-founder as well as director of technologies and innovation within this very organization, Tshega Mampshika. Just a bit about Tshega Mampshika. As I said, he is the co-founder of AlgoAtWork.com, and he has coded a number of apps that are on the Play Store as we speak. His very first application is Imbogodo app, which was a human trafficking solution launched in the year 2017. He is now working on a number of innovations, including a Magete, which is an agri-technology solution, or rather a solution for farmers as well as agro-processors within this very region. He is also working on House of Ecstasy, which is a digital lifestyle experience application. Again, that is going to hit your Play Stores in a couple of weeks. He is also heading a project which is Internet of Things for agriculture, working with the University of Zululand, Umfolozi, TVET College, Aggregate, and a lot more partners, because the whole aim is to introduce the element of technologies within this very region for farmers within the agricultural sector. Please join me in welcoming Tshega Mampshika.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everything is good. Today, like Langelihle has said, I'm going to be delivering a masterclass on artificial intelligence and how it is going to be impacting education. a little bit about artificial intelligence together with fourth industrial revolution, though. The question that everyone is asking themselves, or everyone knows what fourth industrial revolution is, but are we really already in the fourth industrial revolution? And to begin this, my answer to those questions is no, we are not yet on fourth industrial revolution. Yes, we are transitioning to fourth industrial revolution. Would we ever get there? I'm not sure. I was just reading a study by University of Johannesburg, where the professor there was saying that we will never be able to, or we are never going to reach a full fourth industrial revolution. And in my view, the following are some of the things which we need as people of the world to say we are indeed on fourth industrial revolution. And the first thing that must happen is the everyday work. That is, everything that you do that doesn't require you to take different decisions at every moment, every day, needs to be automated for us to say we are in fourth industrial revolution. That is, all jobs that are continuous and that are similar, that is, that same thing happens every day, must all be automated and must be done by a sort of a machine for us to say, yes, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. An example would be what you see on automotive industry. That is, the jobs of moving cars around and plugging them together have been taken out and machines do that. But for us to say we are in the fourth industrial revolution, all jobs, not just in the automotive industry, should be that way. That is, all jobs that are repetitive. The energy production, that is the way we produce energy, should be in a form of green energy. Remember that on the third industrial revolution, energy was mostly produced via coal and gas and petrol. That those energies that are considered to be not green, they were the ones that were used, or those methods that are considered to be not green are the ones that were used to produce energy. Now, for us to say we are indeed in fourth industrial revolution, energy sector should move from non-green energy to green energy. All work that is created, that is, all work that is done every day, should be either creative or decision intensive for us to say, yes, we are indeed on fourth industrial revolution. And all data that is produced should somehow be hosted, either in a cloud or in fog. Fog was introduced last week, on last week's MasterClass. So it must either be on cloud or on fog for easy accessibility and easy processing for us to finally say, indeed, we are in fourth industrial revolution. Now, artificial intelligence towards education. According to studies, by 2021, that is between 2017 and 2021, 47.5% of United States education will be impacted by AI. That is according to the studies. So that is, the studies that is out. But we have talked about this, or we continuously talk about this artificial intelligence. I don't think I have defined it. So let me define it. So I'm just doing a little bit of due diligence before I get into the topic, really. Artificial intelligence, in simple terms, is a software that writes itself, or a software that rewrites itself. That is, if I take this software and it understands a certain information, and then I feed it a couple or a lot of new information, that software needs to understand that information, process it, and change itself or change its behavior in such a way that it considers this new information. Now, for education, imagine a kid, you just gave birth to a kid, and This kid, obviously, you're planning their life, you're planning their education. We know how expensive education is. Imagine, you're in that instance. Now, the kid reaches the age of 3 and you decide, now I need to start teaching my kids something. Imagine if there was a software or a software together with a hardware, which is connected, and you feed this software initial information. That is the kid's name. My kid is so-and-so. The kid's age. My kid, let me say for this example, the kid start learning at the age of 3. So the kid is age of 3. You feed it all this information and artificial intelligence say, or perhaps you also feed it which subjects you want or which multiple subjects you want the kid to take or which multiple disciplines you want the kid to take. And you feed it this initial information. And then after that, you give it to your kid, you say, this is going to be your learning tool. Obviously, you will start by teaching your kid 1 + 1 = 2. And the machine will teach that kid 1 + 1 = 2, help him prove it. And then at the end of each and every task, it provides the kid with a task, perhaps, that the kid needs to solve. If the kid solves those tasks, that is in maths, they solve those tasks in language, English, in isiZulu, Swati, Pedi, any combination of education that you want your kid to have. If the kid is able to solve multiple of those tasks, then this software will decide, because the kid has solved this much task, and because of where right now, at the moment, education is, the next step of tasks would be this certain task. That is, the education that the kid receive will be individual. It will depend on how fast does the kid learn. It will be basically targeted to the kid. What is the kid's interest? So this software would learn, understand how much time the kid spent on what subject, and maybe even ensure that because this kid likes engineering, for example, or he seemed to be liking engineering, on the way, 2 years, 3 years, because he has basics of mathematics, basics of English, basics of language, let us introduce multiple disciplines of engineering to him instead of generic introductory engineering, so that this kid can see these multiple engineering streams and choose from those which one he likes. So the kid gets all the subjects to choose from. He plays around with them, answers certain questions, ensure or showcase that he indeed understands what he's learning. The software, from that understanding or from that data that it's collecting, it then pinpoints which subject the kid is interested in and push him towards those subjects, introduce him further to more. As a parent, at that point, you can then, also say, yes, you can introduce him as a machine to this subject, but please ensure that at least he puts in this and this many hours of these other subjects that you deem important. A kid will be able to learn, let's say we are using an engineering subject, learn engineering. Further as the kid goes, it then looks through those multiple streams of engineering. Which one of those does the kid seem to be enjoying more? It then picks from that discipline, while not really discarding everything else, and while giving the kid an option to really study other disciplines of engineering. But it picks this one because it understands that he spent a lot of time on it. He seemed to enjoy it. He's learning it faster. And it gives him even more to learn. With such a software, by the time a kid is 16 years old, he is able to do, if it's engineering to the professional level. He's able to understand the fundamentals of whatever he's learning. He is able to go back, choose other subjects, and learn them through this software to the point whereby he is at that level again. That, I think, is the definition of freedom. And that is the definition of freedom that artificial intelligence would bring to kids in education. And with such a software, does it not then allow kids, or does it not then inspire kids to focus on that which they love more? Instead of maybe a kid listening to the parents and parents say, hey, I always wanted to be a teacher and therefore you're going to be a teacher. The software allows the kid to learn his or her own interests, process them, learn further from them, and practice them to showcase his skills. To a certain extent, this kind of practice is happening. And to a certain extent, those who are learning through these mechanisms, you can see their distinct differences when they present. Few days ago, I was reading about a kid who is headhunted by the likes of Microsoft and Google. She's only 12 years old. There's a kid who was also headhunted by these companies. Indian kid, he was, I think, 12, 13 also. So because these kids, or kids who are privileged to get a certain amount of information from their young age, are able to then progress faster than the rest of the kids and then produce results easier and faster than the industry level. This allows for economic growth. With artificial intelligence, one other thing that we are going to see is the change in labor laws. That is, instead of saying a kid can only work from the age of 16, for example, or 18, a kid, because of this knowledge and because the labor is no longer physical intensive, it is instead mental, the kids would be able to start working at a younger age. That allows us to harvest or harness the power of kids' minds over a long time, for a longer time. Instead of waiting for someone to finish university, finish master's, finish PhD, at that time he's 30, he's got 20 years to give into the professional world, and then God remembers them. They can start practicing at the age of 16 or even younger. The economic growth can get interest from that younger age, fresh new ideas being progressed, and growth with practice. With such an introduction also of artificial intelligence in education, you are going to learn, or we are going to start seeing youngsters producing themselves in forms that are adult-like. Now, understandably, that this is a theoretical software that I was talking about. Of course, you listen to the likes of Elon Musk. They are already practicing this, although not through a software, through a person-to-person kind of approach, but they are teaching their kids. There are schools in Silicon Valley that are doing this. And I think it is a long-known approach that kids who are privileged, I would say, who, for example, if I have the computer when I was 15, by the time I reached the university, I already know my way around it. So the person who entered that age and he's only being introduced to a computer at that time would then not be at the same level as I am. So this allows for a sort of level approach and level understanding of kids over time. That is equality. But right now, what can parents do to ensure that perhaps their kids are learning, or they are learning in this way even before the software is introduced? There are few kits which parents can buy their kids. The first one would be a Raspberry Pi starter kit. It is an IoT kit. In short description, Raspberry starter kit together with Arduino starter kit, what they do is they allow kids to start creating robotics, start playing with connecting maybe everyday appliances to internet. We can talk about kettle, we can talk about water supply mechanism and everything. So they start playing around with IoT as a whole. There is another one called CRISPR, CRISPR starter kit. This one allow kids to learn genome hacking from an as early age as 6 or even younger. That is, by the time this kid gets to university, he can already remove a certain gene from a certain string and replace it with something else and change its genetic behavior, all in all. That is currently when we are talking about the future of medicine. That is what we are talking about. And when we are talking about individualization of medicine, that is what we are talking about. So CRISPR is a very good tool. CRISPR starter pack. It would help also for parents to allow or even force their kids, because some parents might not afford all this, to force their kids to start taking classes from as simple as YouTube, from the likes of Udemy, edX. You can actually take a course at Harvard Law, at least one course, and study what they study at Harvard Law from internet using platforms such as that. With that, of course, come problems. Parents would ask then the time that parents or that kids would spend on these devices or on computers per se. So yes, you can introduce your kid from as early age as possible to these tools, but try and ensure that your kids spend no more than 4 hours on these devices, especially when they are on their early ages. Limit their time to the devices. That is number one. 2, platforms have got control mechanisms that are there to ensure that you monitor what your kids are doing on internet. So when you allow them to use these devices to learn, monitor what they are doing. It is important. Whether they are playing with Raspberry Pi or whether they are playing with CRISPR, which, by the way, it can be a little bit dangerous. All of them can be dangerous. Ensure that you check that. There's a code which I like, although I've changed it a bit. And this code say, intelligence in the age of technology is not about how much knowledge you can retain. It is about the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn again. Thank you. I will now be taking questions.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. Excuse me about that. Oh, okay. Well, it was not outlined the maximum of questions, but if the grace allows, I think I may have about 3 or 2 the max. The first question that I'd like to ask is, you have already said it over and over again, explicitly and otherwise, that there will be job replacement. So I just want to know what's the sort of response that leadership at policy level perhaps should do for their economies and development. And this connects to my second question. It may be the one, but it's the fact that, for example, for affluent developed countries, for one, they have a very strong policy formulation for themselves, and they pretty much lead the way in these things, if I may say. So there's always a smooth transition and perhaps some sort of an incentive to not to sort of cushion these fears. But for most of African countries, which sadly take the cues from these aforementioned countries, which are affluent West, first world countries, that introduces these things. And by the way, which is a great thing, but I would just like to know what basically is the solution to mitigate that risk, because with transition as it is in Africa, we embrace it some of those people that have a plan and some of the people that obviously embrace the future. But what's the sort of predicament cushion there is for the laymen and ordinary people that in fact are very terrified by these words? Yeah, and the last question, which is the third question, sorry for being long, is that do we really have a clear-cut approach in limiting what, or rather the parents at their household, at their parental level, to sort of monitor the children and the information that flows unmitigated on the internet? Very, inappropriate material, for one, that we know is very intrusive, that even some of us, people that are quite experienced with devices, struggle to mitigate. As also the safety. So is there a clear-cut model to actually be empowered to parents to sort of be able to mitigate these things, given that they themselves are techno-averse? We all know that. Thank you.
So the first question is about policy. What policies are there, or what policies can be introduced to ensure that? Okay, on policies, about a few weeks ago, I saw President Cyril Ramaphosa's fourth industrial revolution commission. So perhaps that is a good, first direction to take, to say, have these commissions. And of course, it is about, I think, the wills of the leaders. I would like to say, though, that it requires a sort of different approach to try and control, or to try and formulate policies around these tools. For one, unless, this one I'm going to say it explicitly, unless you are born in this age, you don't understand what these things are. If you understand them, that means you have done a generally longer studies, but most of our leaders don't necessarily understand what these things are. So basically, maybe that is the first place to start, understanding what these things are. And if you understand them, you can then place policies that will control or allow people to use them in easier forms. And then you then use the sort of things like commissions and all that. And because of the fact that internet is global, it makes it easier for us to learn from the global world and sort of not copy and paste, but change whenever required to ensure that they work for us. We can talk about the latest data scandals, which were facing the likes of Facebook and Google, and how the European unions have mitigated those. It has been impressive, in my view. Or how China, you have two approaches on that point. China simply put a stop to it, and Europe was like, yeah, you can do it, but we want it to be on our own turf. There could be a third introduction, or so on and so forth. The second question was about, if you may remind me.
Okay. The last question was about what sort of clear-cut model that ordinary parents from their tech-averse position may still be able to employ to mitigate the inappropriate information that flies on these devices, since they are fully accessible to their children.
Access. So here is my advice to parents. If you're going to give your kid a phone to do something on it, block, what is inappropriate on your phone. Therefore, block it. So until the kid is at the age of 13, not 18, block their Facebook. They shouldn't even have a Facebook account. They shouldn't have a Twitter account, Instagram account. If you happen to have this on your phone, there is this app that allows a person to put a pin on each and every app as they choose. So you can put a pin or a password for this apps that you don't want your kid to approach. That is the first position. The second position would be, I mentioned YouTube. if you're going to allow your kid to be on YouTube, ensure that it's YouTube for kids. There is a YouTube for kids. So if you're going to allow your kid to be on YouTube, ensure that it's YouTube for kids. If you're going to allow your kid to browse on internet, there is an internet browser, I forgot the name, that is for kids. So there is this few tools that are for kids, and if you're serious about it, you try and research about them. At least I would like to think that I've sparked at least an interest from here, that you can password protect, you can force your kids to use tools that are placed for them instead of just opening up your phone. So if a parent didn't know that these things exist, now you know that they exist.
Thank you for the address, sir. I've got only one question. I'm worried about Satu and Natu. Not so many people mention teachers when this discussion happens. So, how should teachers navigate in this age of the fourth industrial revolution, and how will AI impact teaching or teachers, and how they go about in their profession?
Well, I'm worried about teachers also, because if it wasn't for that salary, hey, ngabe ngekho la. But my advice first to these organizations, especially organizations for teachers, but all of them, my advice to them is they need to innovate. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna lie, and it pains me to say this, it is coming towards the end of age where there is an organization, or they need to be an organization that actually protect these people, because most of the jobs that are about to be introduced don't require that. But I think they can play a role in reinvestment of education and ensuring that they allow teachers perhaps to know about these tools, to use these tools in schools. When you use them and you showcase that you know the knowledge of them, in the end, what you start seeing is the tools start argumenting you instead of totally replacing you. My view on the future of jobs is education will always be important. There will always be educators. But like everything that is about to come, or that, like everything that is coming through, it is the work of passion more than the work of will and money. Therefore, if you're passionate, you practice, you learn, then you are able to mitigate through this. Because education, this software will not be able to teach my kid, for example, morals. That is a very important education. Emotional quotient or emotional intelligence, decision making. I said learn, relearn, and unlearn. Instead of teaching learning, that is, instead of teaching subjects, you can teach how to learn, how to unlearn, and how to relearn, and how to augment your learning with the available tools. So it is all about not really the coming replacement, but the coming requirement for argumentation of these tools. Because if you are a teacher and you don't argument, then you are taken out. You can talk about a teacher, for example, who is from Kenya, who won the Best Teacher Award this year, and he was teaching kids computer by drawing it on the board. He could have said that this thing, no, but he drew it on the board and he actually taught them, to the point whereby Microsoft invested and gave him the tools to do his work. There's a lot more examples that we can use. We can talk about a teacher. There's another teacher, international, and she's teaching kids art through music and dancing. When you're looking at the class on internet, yabona nje kumnandila. That is argumentation. I talked about creativity also, that it is important.
Greetings, everyone. My question is I'm more concerned in terms of the social aspect of the software. Our kids, are they still gonna go play outside? Are they still gonna socialize? Are they even gonna go to schools in where education is just on the computer, a button away? Yes, basically that's it.
Um, I think, this goes also to the issue of teaching. You can integrate that into that. Um, when you're looking at the future and the jobs that are now on a trend in the market, the jobs that are the United Nations said we should look out for in the next 2 years, for example, they talk about such things that there will be high requirement of those kind of people because now, if people are no longer automatically playing outside, so it is the replacement job. So you had teachers who were teaching basically what these devices can teach. They were in class and they were doing work. Now they are being, I'm going to use this word lightly, replaced. But replacing them leaves a vacuum of now physical health, mental strength. We know about the emotional strain that these tools bring into kids' brain. And therefore, teachers would then come and fill that void. So it is a replacement kind of approach rather than total, uh, 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 um, you know, you're not kicking them out, but what they need to do is start aligning themselves. Decision making, um, health and fitness. Um, there's a lot of them that we can talk about, and they are continuously being in a trend, continuously. Any other question? With that said, thank you for everyone who was listening. I hope you learned something. Thanks.
That's how we come close to this week's masterclass. The podcast will be available on algorithmlab.com in a short while. Please do share once it's up on the website. Please do share with your friends. And also for people who want to be a part of these sessions, they can go to algorithmlab.com and then sign up so that we can always send invitations as well as the podcast. Until next week, keep innovating.